We're live on Zoom.
Wonderful. All right. Good evening, everybody. It is so wonderful to be out here and to see all of you in person. I've really been loving that it seems like every community right now is in this place of wanting to come back together in person together again. And I feel like a lot of great ideas and positive community improvements are coming out of that. And I'm certainly looking forward to hearing what you all think and what questions that you have tonight. So we're going to start out with a quick little slideshow of an overview of some of the county improvements that are slated for the Bodega Bay area and some things that we've done recently, and then kind of move into question and answer, and also just happy to accept comments and suggestions, because as I'll get to later in the presentation, we've got a couple of funding opportunities that your Coast Municipal Advisory Council is going to be working through, and that we're going to be working through reviewing in our office. Before I get started, so first of all, hi, I'm Linda Hopkins. I'm your 5th District Representative. I do not cover state parks. I do not control Caltrans, but other than that, I pretty much am the go-to person for anything else that goes on out here. And we do advocate with both state parks and Caltrans, and work really hard to maintain those relationships. And I'm actually super excited about our interim superintendent at state parks right now. He's fantastic. We're working really closely with him. And so I'm excited for some good partnerships there in the future. I also would like to introduce our programs manager and coordinator, Elise Weiland, and Debbie Ramirez, who is one of our field representatives. We have an amazing team in the 5th District office, and we all work to trying to cover all of the far-flung parts of West County, which I feel very grateful, by the way, whoever handled the weather for tonight really hit it out of the park. Although I was kind of hoping it would be a little cooler when I came in. I was like, oh, okay, it's still 80 out here. Pretty warm for Bodega Bay. So we can go ahead and get the slide moving. So starting with an update on the local coastal plan. So these are the topics that we're going to cover real quick: local coastal plan, vacation rentals, parks, fishing, and roads. So starting with the local coastal plan, it was adopted unanimously by the Board of Supervisors. We are hoping and really crossing our fingers that it will go to the Coastal Commission in November, but we do not yet have that confirmed because Coastal Commission staff has to work through it. In November, the Coastal Commission meeting will actually be taking place at the Grayton Casino. So not the casino that you are more familiar with, but the other one that's a little bit further away. That is where they will be holding their meeting. And we will let you know as soon as we do when the LCP will happen. The last I heard from staff, they were thinking that it might get pushed into 2024. But the one thing that we do know will be on the agenda for that meeting of the California Coastal Commission will be vacation rentals. So you're all probably wondering, okay, what's happening with vacation rentals at the coast? And I want to start off with what is not happening on vacation rentals at the coast, because I think it's created quite a bit of confusion. Inland, we've gone through 2 different processes. One was a business licensing program that was actually really designed to address like nuisance concerns for vacation rentals. So someone's being super loud in the middle of the night, someone has a light that's shining directly into my bedroom window, and it goes on, every time someone comes in at midnight to check into their vacation rental, that kind of thing, right? Excess number of guests, too many, cars parked in the driveway, cars parking in the sort of right of way of the road and preventing emergency vehicles from getting in and out. We heard all those kinds of complaints. And so inland, we developed a business licensing program, and we were able to implement that immediately because it doesn't have to go through the Coastal Commission there, right? And so for the coast, we are now following suit with that kind of a program, and that is what we are bringing before the Coastal Commission. Also, what we did inland was we actually started looking at concentration of vacation rentals. That is what we are not doing at the coast right now. So I just want you to know there is no sort of cap going before the Coastal Commission. There is maximum number of vacation rentals anywhere along the coast. It is strictly a business license program that will address some of those nuisance neighbor concerns. And the thing that happens with the business license is up until now, the entire thing around a vacation rental was you had to get a zoning permit. And the only thing that we as a county could do if you were a repeat violator who was always ignoring the laws and always bothering your neighbors was to actually revoke that zoning permit, which is a really onerous process and a really costly process and a really big deal. And so having a business license actually gives us more flexibility to say, hey, you know what? You've had a half a dozen violations, they were confirmed, and so we're going to suspend your business license for a month or 2 months or 3 months until you can kind of get your act together, and then we'll give you another shot. With that, we are also going to be allowing the coast, once it's approved by the Coastal Commission, to have access to our vacation rental complaint hotline. And so that also is another vehicle for if you're having concerns about vacation rentals in your neighborhood that are not following the rules, that are being loud after hours. And I've actually used this myself because I also live within a proximity of a vacation rental in West County. You can actually upload and either sort of text or email or provide audio over the phone to the complaint hotline, which would then be logged and reviewed by Permit Sonoma. So it's actually a good system. You actually talk to a live human being. I can't guarantee that they actually reside in Sonoma County, but it was a real person that I spoke to when I called that number and went through the telephone tree. So if you want more information about the vacation rental sort of business licensing program and what's going before the Coastal Commission, you can go ahead and scan that QR code or go to permitsonoma.org/vacation rentals. And the vacation rental complaint hotline is 707-875-6619. And as a reminder, up until now, there has been really no oversight of vacation rentals at the coast, aside from the requirement that people pay into the transient occupancy tax. But we didn't really have those kind of standards, because again, with the coastal zone having to go through the Coastal Commission, it just never happened. So my goal is to get this across the finish line to address some of those neighborhood compatibility concerns. And then the next step would be coming back to the community and saying, how many are too many? Are there any places where we need to conserve more workforce housing? Where are the areas where they have always been? And it's great to have plenty of them. So that would be a separate process that would be coming later. So next up, we've got parks updates, which are exciting. So one of my sort of favorite pictures, and it really is that beautiful when you're out there. So regional parks will be is on track right now to actually go through with the acquisition of Chancellor Ranch this fall and actually getting it transferred formally over to regional parks. There are no big plans to dramatically change Chancellor Ranch at this moment. And so I want to make that very clear to the community. There will be a master planning process for this park, but we will start with community meetings and really hear from you and from other members of the community what we want to see there. But once it transfers over to regional parks later this fall, the plan is to continue the existing use. There's already public access. You can already go hiking there. You can already, go and ride a horse up there. We plan to continue that equine use, which is really important because if we let that lapse, it's actually a legal non-conforming use. And so we can't not have that for more than a year or we wouldn't be able to bring it back. So we want to keep that continuous in terms of having horse access and horse operation on Chancellor. So for now, it'll be like it always was, except it'll be owned by regional parks. And the next step will be really leaning into that master planning process and seeing kind of what we want the future. Would there be more trails? Might there be opportunities for camping? What are the different kinds of uses that we would envision on that property into the future? We are also actually closer on the master planning process launching for Coast Ranch Regional Park and Open Space Preserve. And so we are actually going to be presenting master plan alternatives later this fall for the community to consider and provide feedback on. So that one has obviously been under public ownership for longer. You can tell that the bureaucratic process takes a while, so don't expect changes to Chancellor to happen overnight when we're just now really getting into the master planning process for Carrington. The goal is to begin, to sort of start that alternatives conversation of, what are the kinds of things you'd like to see on Carrington this fall? And then hopefully we will get environmental impact review started and kind of going before spring of 2024. So that's sort of the timeline that we're looking at. And we do continue to provide park preview days and different outdoor education programs. So keep your eye on the Regional Parks website and Regional Park social media if you want to participate in any of those activities. Also an FYI, if you see crews up there, we actually have the Regional Parks Natural Resource Team, the maintenance and youth crew, who are treating stands of Monterey cypress for ecological health and fuel load issues. They're going to be pile burning later this season. So if you see smoke going up on Carrington, it's actually a good thing. We're trying to make the sort of area more fire safe and reduce some of the excessive fuel loading and address the tree mortality that we've seen on the property. And again, that is the QR code for Carrington. So if you want to make a reservation to go visit it and participate in one of the programs, that's where you can find it. Next up, fishing. So I want to say a huge thank you to our fishermen in the audience. and just acknowledge the tremendous struggle that the industry has really experienced. It has been honestly bad news after bad news, I think, on our coastline in California. And yet we have such an amazing fishing community. They are tenacious, they step up with creative solutions, and I'm really, really grateful that they came and said, hey, you know what, we're gonna see people who are struggling to pay their berthing fees. And if people can't pay their berthing fees, sometimes you wind up with derelict vessels, that then sink to the bottom of the bay. And so I did convince my colleagues on the Board of Supervisors to authorize $150,000 from general fund contingencies to provide some emergency relief for our fishing fleet out here in Bodega Bay. And I also want to give a shout out to Dick Ogg for reaching out and sort of saying, hey, you know what would help, and having those kinds of creative ideas and solutions. I also want to give some gratitude to Elise Weiland, who did submit a NOAA Climate Resilience Grant, which was a collaborative effort between Kashaya, the County of Sonoma, and entities in Mendocino County. And we also are looking at sort of the support for our fishing fleet and the health of our marine ecosystems as a part of that grant work. That would mean tens of millions of dollars coming to Sonoma and Mendocino coasts, but we're just in the very preliminary phase, and we have not gotten a thumbs up or thumbs down from NOAA, which is the federal agency who offered up the grant yet. So we will let you know as soon as we hear about that one. In terms of, I think I've got some statistics up there. Oh, going back, you probably read it. So to date, we've used about $1,000 relief to commercial fishermen. Fee waiver applications are available at the Spud Point Marina office. Please get out the word if anyone has not utilized the program and needs access to those funds. We do have more funds available. And also if there are folks who need additional support, that's also something that could be considered. I'm really grateful for the Spud Point Advisory Council. Also, they do a tremendous amount of work in trying to advocate for the fishing community and interface with regional parks. So next up, roads. So the good news is that you're actually going to get some love in the next pavement preservation cycle out here in Bodega Bay. I know there are people who thought that, Old Town Bodega Bay was just going to crumble into non-existence, and it certainly looked like that for many years. But we are actually doing a very, very targeted focus on Bodega Bay here in the upcoming cycle. So the challenge is that we do 2-year funding cycles, right? So we just approved this at the Board of Supervisors earlier this year. The tougher roads, the ones that require FDRs or full depth reclamation, where you basically have to tear the whole road out, chew it up, and lay it back down because it's so degraded, they typically go in the 2nd year of the cycle. So you're not likely to see this paving next year, but it will definitely happen in 2025. So next year, what will be happening is sort of the engineering that's needed, because sometimes the roads also need to be sort of regraded, resloped, different things like that. So that work will be done. And then we're hoping to get all of those roads across the finish line in 2025. And in the meantime, we will be getting Bay Hill coming up, and that will be happening this year, which is sort of that next segment on Bay Hill. That was another one that was so degraded and so expensive to fix that we had to phase it in over a few years, but we're getting there. And yeah, I want to actually thank Patty Ginocchio, who came up to me and was like, this is our main evacuation route. One of our main evacuation routes, you have to fix this. And so we made that a priority about 6 years ago. Again, government takes time, but we're getting you on the list. So that's a good thing. Finally, one update that we don't actually have on the slides, connectivity. So I just heard from Elise, who's been in conversations with AT&T's representative, that AT&T is working on service improvements in Duncan's Mills, Salt Point, and Guerneville. In addition to that, Brian Hughes, who is our free Wi-Fi champion in West County, is going to be moving forward with that free Wi-Fi installation that we were able to fund through county dollars in Bodega Bay, and Jenner, and we're expecting that to happen within the next month. So that's a really, really exciting improvement and really great disaster resiliency improvement as well. During the storms, we actually maintained, so the January storms that knocked out power so vastly in West County, and especially on the North Coast, we never lost Wi-Fi connectivity in downtown Guerneville, which is a real tribute to having backups to your backups in terms of generators and multiple systems. And so we're hoping to bring that Wi-Fi connectivity disaster resilience to Bodega Bay, Jenner very, very soon. And then finally, also, we are working, because we know that cell signals are always a huge challenge out on the coast. There are actually ongoing conversations between the county through Sonoma County Public Infrastructure's director, Johannes Hoverts, and I don't know if it's AT&T. Is it AT&T, Elise, or is it a different company? That's AT&T, regarding a potential cell tower on the Jenner Headlands, one of the water towers. So utilizing an existing infrastructure that could really bring improved cell signal to the Jenner area, which we know that we need. And the higher up it is, the more it's going to cover, which would be a good thing. So with that, I think that's our last slide. Oh, yes. This is also sort of a PSA, and especially comes from our team, because it actually makes our job easier, but also more effective. There is an app for the county called SoCo Connect, and always feel free to email our office about problems. But if you start here, you will often get a response faster, especially if you upload a photo. So if there is a hazardous situation on a road, a really bad pothole, a downed branch, something that could potentially cause a cyclist to get into an accident, or something that could impact your vehicle, please, please, please go ahead and go to SoCo Connect and report that and send a picture, because once the county kind of clues into, hey, this could be a potential liability, they tend to move faster. And we will always email and advocate for those things to be fixed, but having that sort of image evidence go straight into the system where the departments are reviewing it can really help get your concern addressed as quickly as possible. So with that, I also wanted to introduce one other person. I promised that I would not make him actually speak, but he will respond to questions if they are asked. This is actually one of our fantastic county department heads, Ethan Brown, who's the head of our Economic Development Board. So he is really sort of about supporting small businesses. He's extremely interested in supporting the fishing fleet and looking at sort of the blue economy and supporting coastal businesses, helping with some of those shoulder season and off-season challenges. And so he's really here just to hear from all of you and to also answer any questions about resources that he could potentially bring to support our small business community. So, so with that, the floor is really yours. And I will actually ask you to come up here, because we do have some folks listening in online. And that way, then, everybody can hear you. I know it's harder than you have to come up being in front of the class or something like that. But I know that no one out on the coast is shy. So does anyone have any questions? Questions? All right, come on up. I was gonna say, I used to be a teacher, so I know how to just stand there awkwardly until someone feels bad for me and jumps up and says, fine, I'll say something.
I have a question for Ethan. I'm kidding. Don't worry. I'm Carmen. I live in Bodega Harbor. You touched upon it briefly. I'm interested in fire defensibility, or what's it called? Defensible space, how it will apply to our area and what the county will do, because there are a lot of areas that include invasive species that have gone sort of wild. And if there ever is a fire here, it will just take off. And it will be our own responsibility, but also we don't want the county to be involved as well. Thank you very much.
Great. That's a really great question. And we have a lot of challenges out here. Pampas grass is a big one that's quite flammable and really common all up and down the coast. Also eucalyptus, which, we have a program to actually remove as many eucalyptus trees in the road right of way that we can. Those things are like torches, and they really allow the fire to jump. They're actually basically born to burn. They're extremely oily and they thrive in a fire environment. And so some of them can't actually even really regenerate until a fire comes through. So they like fire. They want to promulgate it. So that's why they sort of try to, go up like a torch and light the next one on fire. So, so we have actually been working, including on sort of the Bodega area corridor, to get an arborist out and to sort of see, what could come down and what's within the county right of way. That's still in process, I believe, right, Elise? Yeah. So we'll let you know when we have some more information. But if you have any nominations for specific eucalyptus trees that you think are in the county right of way, please take a picture and send them our way, and we can pass that on to Sonoma County Public Infrastructure. In terms of defensible space, so number one, as a property owner, you're required to comply with state law, which has mandates for defensible space. And so I'm sure Cindy from the Sonoma County Fire District, or Steve, would be happy to come up here and give that spiel about exactly what it includes. So I won't sort of tell you the letter of the law on that one. But what I will say is that we have resources available at the county where, depending on communities, and I don't believe that Bodega Bay is eligible, but I know that you can still sort of sign up to get inspections, right? Even if it's not just sort of the free inspection and free assistance that other communities, disadvantaged communities might have. And actually, I'll maybe ask Debbie to do a little bit of work and find the web address, because I know we've got a web address that's a portal for sort of all of this information. In Sonoma County, what we're really trying to do is to do landscape in and also house out. So that's why we have been giving funding to local fire departments to increase the number of defensible space inspections and going after federal funds in order to try to give disadvantaged communities the tools that they need to then comply with those defensible space inspections. Because we've got a lot of homeowners who are on fixed incomes who, if there's a tree that needs to come down or, you know, $10,000 or $20,000 worth of work, they simply can't afford that. However, we have added defensible space to our program where you can actually sort of finance it on your property tax bill, the same way that you can do with installing solar. So that PACE program is available. It's called Skype, and it's the Sonoma County Energy Independence program, but we also actually include defensible space work in that financing program as well. On the landscape inside, we are aggressively working on vegetation management on all of our publicly owned lands. And we are really trying to encourage and support state parks in doing so as well. So during the local coastal plan, actually Scott Firmer was a huge advocate for this. One of our North Coast Municipal Advisory Council representatives was really trying to streamline the process of vegetation management, not only for state parks, but also for homeowners. Because I don't know if you knew this, but well, and it's actually, I guess it still technically applies until the Coastal Commission approves our new LCP. In order to conduct legally mandated defensible space work on your property, you needed a coastal development permit in order to do that, based on some people's interpretations of what was written in the local coastal plan, which is crazy, right? So you could actually get fined for doing the work that you needed to do so that you didn't get fined by a different agency. So classic government, right? So it's something that we really worked hard on the local coastal plan, was cleaning that up. And that's also why, you know, we've partnered with Jenner Headlands in terms of vegetation management, grant opportunities, and we actually have programs funded by the county from the PG&E settlement up and down the coast, not only prescribed grazing, but also, controlled burns and pile burns, all different kinds of work going up and down the coast. And the work that I described previously on Carrington was another example of that. So I would say call your state legislators and encourage them to get some funding for state parks to do the same thing, because we're kind of picking up a little bit of the slack on our regional parks, but there's more work to be done on state parks in particular. Next question or comment. Totally happy to hear comments.
One from online. This is why we had QR codes. I have a very long link on vegetation management.
Of course.
But I can add that to the event listing.
Great. So I think probably the best thing, what did you search to find this? Because this is going to be a long thing for people to.
County Vegetation
Okay.
Management.
So if you search Sonoma County Vegetation Management, the web link should come up. And if you see a web link that looks something like permitsonoma.org/divisions/fire prevention and hazmat/services and fees/vegetation management services, you're in the right place. So that's exactly why the QR codes. We are not very good at those short link names, but it's a great portal, and it kind of shows you all of the different programs. There are also different maps that you can access. We did a really good job of trying to get some data of what is your risk of ember cast, what is your sort of fire risk that is a little bit more granular in detail than the CAL FIRE map. So it actually really talks more about, analysis of the prevailing wind conditions, how many structures there are, those kinds of things, which are helpful to know. So is there a question online that you want to refer? Great.
Lupe, would you like to read that question?
Will we be able to hear her?
Probably.
Can you
better.
hear me?
Yeah, actually.
Yes. Okay. So this question comes from Suzanne Martin, and she typed, Supervisor Hopkins, in August 2023, the PD said that Sonoma County was considering removing the status of peace officers from our park rangers. These rangers are part of the coast, very thin line of defense, and most of us would not like to have this happen. Do you have an opinion or an update?
That is a really excellent question. And that conversation really came about from a conversation between the sheriff, Eddie Engram, and our Sonoma County Regional Parks Director, Bert Whitaker, where we actually often struggle to recruit regional park staff because the bar is set so high to become a peace officer. So I actually talked to a gentleman who had been trying to become a regional parks ranger for about 9 months. And this was someone who previously ran his own company and really just, this was like his calling. He really wanted to do that. Right now, the job market is so hot. It's really, really tough to say to someone, it's going to take you 9 months in order to get this job. And we've also found that there are a lot of folks who are drawn to regional parks work, not because they want to be peace officers, but because they really want to be sort of delegates and ambassadors and educators out in the community. And so the idea was to actually bring actually more resources from the sheriff's office, peace officers who would be specifically patrolling regional parks and public lands, and then sort of facilitating regional parks to also have civilian staff who would be more in the kind of ambassador realm. I know that it has created some consternation amongst our unions, and I think a lot of confusion in the public because we haven't actually had an official full board update on this yet. And I think that that is overdue so that we can vet that conversation more publicly and kind of look at the pros and cons. I will also say that, one of the reasons this came about is that our regional parks rangers did amazing work that was way beyond their job description in doing things like clearing the Joe Roberta Trail encampment. That is not what people sign up for when they become parks rangers, is to go and essentially become social workers, but who are also sort of evicting people right from their tents on a publicly owned trail. And so kind of hearing some feedback from staff and seeing how hard that was for them, that was also part of the vision between trying to separate out those two job classes. I will say that I don't have an official position because I feel like I want to know more. This is really just the start of the conversation. No formal action has been taken. And I will also acknowledge that we are struggling with recruitment and retention in the sheriff's office, and having this kind of a job position with the sheriff's office might actually allow us to get more deputies and more applications on the sheriff's office side. So right now, the folks who work in our main adult detention facility, over at the county complex in Santa Rosa, are pulling 90 hours of mandatory overtime per pay period. That is how poorly we are staffed right now at our county jail, which is, just horrific for the deputies and for having to, not be able to see their families and being required to work that much in a very grueling environment. It also means that our inmates, residents, are not actually getting the treatment that they deserve because, they don't have as much of an opportunity to go outside or to, because there just aren't enough people to safely supervise. So we are kind of seeing crisis staffing levels in the sheriff's office. And so, this conversation was trying to find a creative solution to multiple challenges that we were experiencing. I do also want to mention that the Board of Supervisors did pass an anti-camping ordinance really geared towards saying where it's not okay for unsheltered people to sleep overnight on public property. And we really looked at sort of more sensitive environmental areas, particularly areas, within a certain proximity of a blue line stream or a floodway. And so that would certainly apply to some of the riparian corridors out in this area. I know that you don't struggle with that as much as other parts of West County, but I think it's good to know what the rules are and then to have the ability to enforce them. Other questions or comments? Yeah, come on up, Tony.
Hi, Linda, you know who I am. The rest of you don't. I'm Tony Anello. I own Spud Point Crab Company. First of all, I'd like to thank Linda's participation in getting us fishermen some type of recognition that we are suffering in our industry. I'd like to thank you for that, Linda. I am on the advisory board of the marina. I'm currently the president, and we're there basically to help the county keep the industry alive. And because we're dying on the vine, and it's not our fault. It's just the way the circumstances are, the way things are happening. With the closure of salmon season, the shortness of the crab season, we're looking for any way that the county could recognize to keep local buyers here in the area, fish buyers and crab buyers, to augment and help us fishermen have a way to get the best product out to the public. But there's a couple of other issues that I'd like to recommend the county to take a look at. One of them is, Linda, I approached your staff and I basically talked to you one time about it. It's very important on West Shore Road to, in the congested area, to at least get it down to 25-mile-an-hour zone in the congested area, because somebody's going to get hurt. I myself almost got hit trying to cross the road one time. And in the time when there's openings for sport fishing or sport crabbing, the people that come there don't recognize the speed limit. They fly by our property, fly by the marina. And I do have the support of Noah Wagner, the marina manager, and Bert and David, which are involved in that. We should really take a look at that and at least get an area to where we can slow the traffic down and be cognizant that there is people walking around the area. And I know you took a look at it one time. I know it's into another division, but it's time maybe we should take a better look at it and get it to materialize. Again, I want to thank you for your support, and you're doing a great job for keeping us, trying to keep the industry alive out here, because this is where, when I started in 1969 fishing, I've been fishing for 50 something years here, and it's really turned different. It turned into where we have to recognize that that's what brought the industry out here to, and why people wanted to come out here, because it started as a fishing port. Now it's a recreational port, but times have changed, and I recognize that, but we still have to keep involved in trying to keep our industry alive the best way we can. Again, I want to thank you. That's my comments.
You know, there actually may be good news since you first made that request. So for the longest time, we were extremely constrained with respect to how we could post speed limits, because the state law was that you had to, take a speed survey and then set it at a certain percentage of the average speed. That doesn't mean that it's actually the safe speed. That's just how fast people are going, right? And it certainly doesn't mean that it's the safest speed for bicyclists and pedestrians in highly trafficked areas. But with the new state law passing, I think it passed last year, or might have been the year before, they actually created a little bit larger sort of buckets for where you could apply that 25-mile-an-hour designation. So I will absolutely ask Sonoma County Public Infrastructure to take a fresh look at West Shore and see if it meets those new criteria. I also forgot to announce one of the most exciting things, I think, that have happened to West County in a while, which is that last year during budget hearings, we were able to set aside $2 million for community infrastructure projects for the 5th district. So for all of West County, this year we were actually able to set aside an additional 4. And so we've spent about $1 million on different sort of projects that were lined up, but that means that we have around $5 million to invest in Western Sonoma County. And so we've got an ad hoc of our municipal advisory council. So it's both the Lower Russian River and the coast will be meeting as part of this group, plus bringing in some of those communities who don't have max to talk about, hey, what are the criteria that we want to set up and how do we want to prioritize? But my goal, quite frankly, is to try to get projects going in every community, which we have a lot in West County, but, really try to maximize what can a few $100,000 do? Can it, fix up an old park that's been, run down for a long time? Can it bring a new park to the community? Because we can also use that money to leverage other money. Like, for instance, we have the matching grant program opening up from the Ag and Open Space District, accepting applications for new recreational opportunities starting in January. So I would love to hear any suggestions from that. And like I said, the Municipal Advisory Council will be moving forward. So I will definitely follow up on West Shore, Tony. And then the other thing that I wanted to mention that I almost forgot to say was that part of that NOAA grant that we submitted, it would invest millions of dollars specifically in Bodega Bay to our, quite frankly, drowning dock infrastructure. And so it was really about sort of resilience and making sure that we can keep up with sea level rise, because some of those docks are like the wreck dock is like already underwater in spots when you're walking on it at high tide. So it would be a really, really big boon to Bodega Bay in particular. So. We also continue always to look for money for the ice house. That was one of our federal requests. I don't think that it got funded. I can't remember who carried that one, if it was Padilla or Huffman, but we work with all of our federal legislators, and that was our big ask from the county for one of them. And that the NOAA Resilience Grant also included the redo of the ice house to make it more energy efficient and climate friendly. And we also, are in good company because actually Noyo Harbor has been very aggressive at pursuing federal funding. They apparently got a brand new ice house. And so we're like, we really need to keep up here in Bodega Bay. That's a critical need, especially, yeah. And another thing that I would love to talk to, and maybe I should come to a Spud Point Marina Council meeting sometime, are there ways that we could help support, again, the off-boat sales or the direct to consumer, and, just even by helping to cross promote, or maybe it's a regional parks event, or, like, what are the things that we could do to work with you to try to get you that profit margin increase, so that even though, what you're bringing, your sort of, product level is down, you're getting more for your product by selling it direct to the consumer. And so anyways, I would love to brainstorm some outside of the box stuff on that with the fishing community. All right, and then I think after that, Lyra.
Well, thank you, Linda. This is the microphone. Hi, I'm Michael Keys. I live in Gleason Beach. It's a pleasure to meet you guys finally. So I'd like to echo what put in some larger perspective what Tony is talking about on West Shore. This community is really spread out. We have really poor communication internally. We're not alone. Just try and make it from the gas station to across the street to the municipal in where you launch in Jenner. You can get right over there, Pacific Coast Highway. West Shore is a classic case. I can't get across to the birds on a day. You got to really be able. People come around this corner at 40 miles an hour. It's really common. They'll have a trailer. There's no way they can stop. You've got kids. So I think what, part of this development should include is not strictly for Bodega Bay, but Bodega Bay, perhaps the center, to find a way to get pedestrian, bicycle access, just to make this a little bit more community. We're heading towards recreation, even within the fisheries. There's a lot of sport fishing going on. We've got bicycles going through. Lord knows, we lost a ranger on a bicycle a few years back on the Pacific Coast Highway. She lived right here in Duncan's, but there's very little I think we can do on the open highway. There's a lot more that we can do right in town. How do we get from here to have coffee over there? You can't use the draws. There's no pedestrian ways. We have not reclaimed our right-of-ways. You can't get from here, you can't walk safely along the Pacific Coast Highway here. I think we have to reclaim our right-of-ways. I think part of that should go into, deciding which side are we going to have a sidewalk, one side or the other. But we've already started. Let's force it through, and then let's think of some internal connectivity. Thank you.
I love your advocacy. And so one thing that's exciting is that we just are in the process, I think it's about to be announced, of hiring a new director for the Sonoma County Transportation Authority and Regional Climate Protection Authority, which I will be chair of next year. And so I had the opportunity to work really closely with him. And he said, you should really look at, because they talk to Caltrans all the time. What are your top priorities for crosswalks across Caltrans right of ways? I'll try to work on that. And so, if there are particular locations that you really think would make sense, let's have that conversation. I think it's a great opportunity. So I would love to work with you on that. And I think that another resource that I really want to work on, and I actually hope to host a joint meeting between the regional, the Sonoma County Transportation Authority and our Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee, of getting us all in the same room at the same time to really talk about what are those community needs. So let's work on this. I would love to come out here again with a map and maybe try to go on a group walk wearing bright orange vests and flashing lights. And see what we could do to improve things. And again, even if we can't control Caltrans, and even if we don't have the money today, if we at least start the planning process, that's how things eventually get done. And in the meantime, hey, if we're repaving those, roads in 2025, are there improvements that could be made to support bike and pedestrians as part of that? because we've got a couple of years to plan on that. So I love it. Oh, and one other thing I wanted to mention, and I want to throw this out as an idea for all of you. I've been to other communities, including other communities kind of similar to ours. Like think about like a community in Lake Tahoe that has a rural community, tons of visitors in the summer, and every street that you go down, there are speed humps, you know, that actually slow people down, because it's really bad if you hit those things, you know, going 35 miles an hour. You really have to go 20 to 25. There apparently has been some kind of county-wide sort of ban on new speed bumps or speed humps, which I think is silly, especially since there are ones that are more like tables. So they're not as jarring, because I've also heard from some people, maybe you have back problems, maybe you have, you know, you don't want to have something that's going to hurt you to go over. But is there something where we could actually use traffic calming to try to make things safer for bicycles and pedestrians? Not everywhere, but again, on certain routes, so that people could at least get out of, you know, their car, walk from their home to go get their coffee, and not have to get in that vehicle and add to the traffic load. So if anyone has any thoughts on that, that was another kind of potential use of those community infrastructure funds. Could be speed humps, could be crosswalks, could be new stop signs. Let's think about what would make the community safer. So I thought I saw a hand over here. Yeah, come up.
Good to see you. At the time, I was just like, nice house. So good to see you. Good to see you. And thank you so much. You have like been an advocate for the coast from the day you took office, and probably actually before that. So thank you. And this is a topic we've talked about a number of times. I'm really concerned about our lack of rental housing here. And it's something that is relatively unique to this area. Like as we speak, the state has kind of taken over control over land use. And that is increasing, you know, multi-family housing all throughout the state, there's certain little pockets where there's just none still. And so there's something I'm fighting in Santa Cruz, like here I'm actually advocating for. We need some level of multifamily housing here. And my understanding, I could be wrong, is that there's no zoning for it, and it would be really tricky with the Coastal Commission. But I think that we need something that would create rentals. And I know that, you know, having a vacation rental ordinance will help to some degree, but right now we're seeing an erosion of community. Like this is my community and I can't live here because there's no place to rent. It's very difficult. So I come back as much as I can, and I know that this is happening to other people who end up moving away. And we have jobs, we have small businesses that are really struggling to fill their businesses with people who can actually live out here, either afford to live out here somehow, or afford the rising gas prices to commute inland and back out here. So if there is just some way to like create an opportunity site of some sort, because believe me, there's a lot of developers who would love to create something. And I know that that might not be the most popular thing with some folks. I'd love to talk to anyone who's interested in discussing this, but like maybe one modest size, like 20 to 30 unit of a rental development, because we just don't have rentals out here, and it's actually a really big problem in our community. So any advice or ideas, and of course it could be 6 years down the road that anything actually gets pushed through the Coastal Commission, but if there's some sort of trajectory, that would be great. Thank you.
No, that's a really great conversation. And I'm blanking on the woman's name, but she was the daughter of the coffee shop owner. And at the time she had a baby, and I'm sure that baby is now in like 1st or 2nd grade, but thank you. Thank you. I remember her just like speaking up very similarly at a town hall, you know, several years ago, just being like, this is my home and I can't live here. And I you know, can't raise my child here. And that really breaks my heart when you see that kind of break in, this is where I want to be, but I can't be here and I can't be part of this community that is my community. Oh, okay. I think it was, yeah, I think it was Libby. It was Libby, because I also would run into her at the Kate Wolf Festival up in Mendocino. That's, yeah. If Libby was the Kate Wolf Festival goer, that was, anyway, small town. So the good news is that we have great language that is very pro affordable housing and pro rental housing in the local coastal plan that is going to the Coastal Commission. The bad news is that right now it's just language. The rubber is going to meet the road actually when we get that first phase of the LCP done, and then we actually come to the implementation phase where we're actually looking at zoning. And so that's when I would love to talk to you all, and I would love to actually hear support, because oftentimes when we say affordable housing, people run in the other direction and say, I don't want it near me. But I have consistently heard both from the South Coast and the North Coast in Sonoma County that there is a huge need for affordable housing. So I look forward to that. And I believe that that process will be launching next year, basically whenever we can get this, the first phase through the California Coastal Commission. I also want to throw out a challenge, and it's a challenge because I don't think that such a property really exists in this part of the coast. But if you can find a moderately priced, potentially just dump of a home for sale, and I mean that like affectionately, but like rundown, needs a lot of work, right? There's actually a great model that is working really well in Santa Rosa right now. I had an opportunity to tour the living room, and what they are doing is they're going in and they're buying fixer-uppers, and they are taking one unit and they are turning it into three, right? So you start with a single family home, you immediately split it into a junior, ADU and the home. So you get sort of 2 units in one. Then you add an actual ADU that's like just sort of a plug and play kind, modular, you drop it in. It's more challenging when you're on septic. So that's why it's sometimes, challenging if it's in a more rural area, but on sewer, it's easy to do. And so they actually then use the increased value to the home to finance all of these efforts. And for relatively modest donations and a modest starting cost, then you can actually start to get folks who are on Section 8 vouchers, into those doors, and local worker priority and things like that. And so they've been doing that. And it's just like, to me, that was a light bulb that went off, because it is so expensive to build housing. It is so hard to build housing in Sonoma County. So if you can take an existing unit and turn it into 3, you've just made 2 housing units that weren't there before. And so again, if you can find a rundown affordable house on the coast, which is a big if, please tell me about it, because I'd love to hear about it. Yeah, Lyra? So this is state law. Now you have to be able to do this. So our zoning is overridden by the state. So you can, on any single family dwelling zoned parcel, now have, a junior ADU and an additional ADU. And there's actually the state law, right, that now is sort of looking at, I think it's a 4-plex potentially on an SFD zone. Yeah. HOAs are a whole separate ball of wax. And I think there's been litigation sort of between HOAs and the state over whose rules trump who. So I'll stay out of that one. But from the Permit Sonoma perspective, right, we don't enforce the HOA rules. We go by the state law. So but you do have to take that up with your HOA. Yeah, come on up.
I think the state actually is utilizing a similar process with the education. Okay, I think the state is actually utilizing a similar process for their educational facilities. Sonoma State took the old buildings that they had, gutted them, and redid the whole thing and re-established a whole new process that way, and didn't have to rebuild any buildings. Left the campus the same way it was. I guess, I was coming up to actually, I was going to talk about something else, but I might as well talk about that too. I want to first just say how much we as fishermen appreciate all the work that you have put into the, taking care of us, because we are in a situation where regulations, seasons, weather conditions have all impacted us to the point where we basically just can't do anything. We can't keep crew. We can't afford fuel. I mean, these guys are really struggling to make things work, and just the efforts that the county has done to try and help, support us as just, the identity of Bodega. I mean, that's what the fishermen are. And it means a lot. It really, really, truly means a lot. So I just wanted to say thank you. I want to ask about, what the possibilities of looking at, rebuilding that ice house, because that is going to be the backbone of the salmon industry. We're going to have a salmon season in the next couple of years. We're still, the ocean abundance is still in kind of dire straits. And we need to really consider what we're going to do when that season really starts up again. We're the central part of the salmon industry, and it's incredibly important. The other thing I want to thank you for is working on the fuel dock, and thinking about putting in new dispensers that offer us an opportunity to potentially be able to get fuel anytime during the day. I mean, it's just there's innovative ways to help the industry, that doesn't impact the the county in terms of employment. I mean, it really means a lot to all of us, you know, so I just wanted to say thank you for that. The other thing I wanted to ask about was, you know, the Paisano dock and the possibility that we have local people that really want to run that. And I know that the ask of the county was significantly high, and without an inch, you know, without some seasons and possibilities for these things to, you know, come together, it's very, very difficult for anybody to make ends meet. So I'm hoping that the county can come, you know, and adjust the fees that are on that dock so that we have that available, because that's a very important area for all of us. So at any rate, I just want to say thank you again, and you know, really you've gone out of your way to make this, you know, really nice for all of us. Thank you.
I really appreciate that. And on the dock, I would love to come like to, I mean, I don't know if a Spud Point Marina Advisory Council meeting would be the right place to have that. We also at some point might want to kind of focus on, you know, fishing as a Coast Mac agenda item. So, I mean, whether it's kind of bringing it to the Coast Mac and I'm there, or whether it's, you know, I come to one of your meetings, I would love to get into kind of some of these other details. So on the ice house, the two kind of potentials that we are exploring right now are the federal earmark, which we have not secured yet, but, you know, we're going to keep trying, and it's a top priority of our Washington, DC lobbyists that we hire to go try to get us that money. And then the NOAA grant. So sort of once we get either the, you know, and it wouldn't be a full thumbs up on the NOAA grant, but it's just you're invited to submit the full application. If we get that invitation, we will keep pursuing that option. If that shuts down, and then if, you know, it seems like we're not getting any traction on the federal level, I think that we'll need to start exploring either other grant opportunities or how do we phase this in? Because I think it was like a $1.2 million ask. So we can't put all of our community infrastructure funding there, but, you know, what could we phase in over time? Because we cannot get to a place where that doesn't function in the middle of your very short season and you don't have an ability to chill your product. So, so anyways, I would love to kind of get into the dock issue and, you know, and what else we can do with what we've got and in the future. So thank you so much. Thank you both for your advocacy. I feel like you're just both wonderful leaders in the coastal community. And yeah, it's great. I don't want to lose that identity to, you know, it is so much a part of the identity of Bodega Bay, and it's critical. And that's why people come here, I think, right? Seeing, you know, the fishing fleet, seeing them go out and, you know, being able to go and get that high quality, fresh product that's from here, not brought in from Alaska or, you know, the East Coast or wherever else. So. All right. Other questions or comments you want to share? Wonderful.
You want to read that next question?
And next, you'll go next after the online. We'll do online first, then we'll come to you. Is that good? Yeah. Felipe, ready?
Yes, I'm here. Can you
go.
guys hear me? Sorry.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Question from Ray Irvin. With the county wanting to allow public access to the county owned space behind South Harbor and the Bodega Bay Homeowners Association, what is the status of the county's proposal to create a parking lot on Osprey alongside Short Tail Gulch? As you are aware, the agreement allowing this development only allows access to the beach.
So I believe that this is the conversation around sort of connecting over to the Estero. Is that correct?
Wildlands.
The Wildlands Conservancy. That's what I thought. The Wildlands Conservancy. So that is actually a proposal that I believe is either forthcoming or has been submitted to Permit Sonoma from Wildlands Conservancy. So it is more, I think, about sort of access from their property, but I have not been briefed on the application and haven't touched base with them. So I would definitely need to look into that and get back to you.
How do we get more information about, I mean, where is the permit filed? If I see public information.
Yeah.
Where would we, I mean, as someone who just moved here and you know, lives in that area, the traffic and the parking on the street at this juncture are concerning. And, you know, part of it is, you know, very candidly, the investments that people have made in their houses, and have a parking lot sort of imposed would certainly raise a lot of concerns, I think.
So I think that so the question from the audience for anyone listening in online who couldn't hear was, how do we find out more information about this, since there are concerns about sort of parking and traffic and impacts to the neighborhood? And the answer is that there is mandatory notification for neighbors. That doesn't work out. It's a certain, number of feet or yards. That doesn't work very well in rural areas because you could have one or practically no neighbors. And so limited notification. However, every kind of substantial use permit, there is actually an online list that you can sign up on to receive those notifications. You're going to get a lot of stuff you don't want to see, but you would also see the ones that you do want to see. And we do get those as well. So we try to flag ones that are of interest to then actually sort of forward over to our Coast and Lower Russian River Municipal Advisory Council's land use committees. So
When you go to your office, is your office safe?
if you reach out to us, we can definitely find if it's been. So send us an email. You can either email linda.hopkins@sonoma-county.org or District 5. That's the number 5, not spelled out, at sonoma-county.org. And if it's been submitted, we can absolutely get that information to you. But typically these kinds of applications that do create conversations in the community, we typically bring those to the Municipal Advisory Council's land use standing committee, not ad hoc, standing committee. Yes. So it's a public meeting, and then, there's an opportunity to ask questions of the permit Sonoma planner who's overseeing the project, sometimes of the applicant themselves.
Would you be able to get up and talk about this? And assume if going through, you know all about it.
Do you want to come up here, Carmen, so we can hear? Yeah.
Thank you very much. I haven't met the gentleman who asked the question, but the association is concerned about opening up the harbor public streets to essentially a private concern who purchased Estero Ranch. Their only access right now is through our Short Tail Gulch. The homes there are just homeowners, and they have the public already parking to get access to Short Tail Gulch, and it is quite extensive, especially on weekends. And we've told them we're working with you. We'd like to work with you. We have some alternatives. We'd like to present it to the Wildlands Conservancy as well, other than just using our streets. And the alternatives would be, for example, there already is a parking lot. If that parking lot could extend a road, and believe me, we have no approval from any HOA members yet for that, but that is one alternative, if the road could go to Estero Lane. Now, the Homeowners Association is 725 people. To do any change in the common area requires, I think, a 2/3 vote. So even if the few board members say, gee, we'd like to do X, we'd still have to take it to the association to vote. And if they vote it down, well, we have no authority to do anything. But we would like to make some alternatives because the neighbors already have a tremendous amount of people there. I know that the TWC, the Wildlands, say, well, there's not a lot of people who are going to come, but their plan is to create 5 miles of trails, and it's very attractive to some people. And we'd like to work with you to try to get access to there that would not use our streets as parking, because it's very difficult for the few homeowners who live there. And the real difficulty is fire access to the fire engines, because people park on both sides of the streets. Then if there's a problem, an emergency, the engines can't get through because the streets are not really that wide. So thank you very much for the opportunity. A lot of our owners are concerned, but they do see the positive aspect of this. So thank you very much. We'll be in touch. Thank you.
Is this to put a parking lot on the green belt on Austin? That there is the HOA in negotiations to do that?
There is no negotiation and there is no parking lot on the green belt. We already have a Pinnacle Gulch parking lot for, I believe, 15 or 20 slots. And on paper, and Kim Kilkenny is here, he's the president of our association. If we could open up the parking lot and have people drive through the parking lot onto, there is some common area there, and it's not the easiest route, but it is really something that we believe is the homeowners would accept, perhaps.
And are you saying that access, would it be to expand the Pinnacle Gulch parking area? Or would it be to put that road through to an already court settled private road? The sterile lane?
Oh, no, we don't want the court. Yeah, you have a point about the court settled.
That was, two landowners have already gone to court over that, and there just is no public access on a sterile lane to the wilderness.
That Zoom can't hear you.
Yeah.
In that case, that is a problem.
Yeah, if I can, thank you, Supervisor. Appreciate the opportunity. My name is Kim Kilkenny. I'm the president of the Bodega Harbor HOA. There is no negotiation. The background is the local coastal plan was recently updated, and as part of that, the suggestion was included the possibility of providing access to a sterile ranch near Short Tail Gulch. It is not a requirement, it's not a plan, it is not a proposal. It was the local coastal plan recognizing the possibility of it happening, that it is a potential. The HOA expressed two concerns. One is, as some of you may be familiar, the Bodega Harbor is a result of a settlement agreement with the Coastal Commission arising from litigation in 1972. And our opinion is that settlement agreement prohibits any inland access on any of our existing trails. So we're concerned, we're a signatory to that, and we cannot violate that agreement, nor do we think the county or the state can violate the agreement. The second concern is if it is wise to grant access over Bodega Harbor common land, then the board of directors of the HOA does not have the authority to do that. It has to be approved by 2/3 vote of the members, and not 2/3 vote of the people who vote on that day, 2/3 vote of the whole entire 725. Now, we recognize that providing access to the Estero may be a desirable thing to do. We think it is probably not a good idea near Short Tail Gulch. We have examined a variety of alternatives that we're going to look at with interested parties to see if it makes sense. In my judgment, if it goes through Bodega Harbor over common land, it's going to have to provide certain benefits, one of which is parking that does not impact the existing neighborhood. The second would be toilet facilities, and the third would be trash pickup, and the fourth would be lock gates at certain times. So I think that there's room to have a conversation, and I think our hands are tied in some respects, but we're anxious and willing to have that conversation and see if there's common ground. Thank you.
Well, one meeting always begets more meetings, and I feel like we definitely need to have a follow-up conversation about this and engage with both regional parks and the applicant once and when I don't know if the application has been submitted. I just kind of heard that it was maybe coming. So I'll try to get an update on that status, and then we can look at next steps. But I do think that a sort of collaborative conversation around maps and maybe even actually meeting out on site would be a great, first stab at this. And then I know we had someone lined up to speak as well.
I'm George Flores, and I'm kind of going to be the Lorax here and speak for the trees, people that aren't here, and it's particularly the Spanish-speaking community, the workers who keep the businesses running, basically the folks that clean your houses, do your gardening, take care of your horses, do basically the grunt work in the community. We've already acknowledged that finding rentals is incredibly difficult. They have day-to-day problems that are as serious and as deep and as troublesome as people who live in the more populated areas that do get the attention of county and city services, but they aren't available here. The programs that even extend into Guerneville don't reach here for services to Spanish-speaking population, for adult education, for additional children's aid, for weekend sports teams. We need more attention for this population, and more specifically to help lift them up in ways that our wonderful social service organizations here, like Wave of Compassion, do. I know our business owners do as much as they can. The school is incredible in helping to meet the needs of the children and their families that come, collecting, helping them with food and clothes, and the food pantry that we have here. But most of the responsibility rests with volunteers. And it really does make a difference in terms of who we are as a community, because as a matter of fact, the people that are raising families here are not going to be able to afford to stay permanently. And the people who are here, retirement age, and I'm included in all of you, will be gone in another 10, 15, 20 years. So we have to really think deeply about what kind of a neighborhood do we want? What kind of a community do we want? And how are these voices included, not just in this town hall meeting, but in the MAC? Is there a possibility, Linda, of having, when you do get student interns, to assign them to do some focus groups here of that working population, of those working groups, to find out how their needs can be better met? I know a lot of them either live here, or a lot of them live outside of our community and come here to work because they can't afford to live here. But there are a number of ways that rent, transportation, social services, other kinds of services perhaps could be helped to more meet the needs of that population. And I think that's one of the biggest concerns that I have as a local resident here, is making sure that people who are putting their sweat equity into our place where we live are getting something in return.
That's Dr. Flores. Thank you so much, Dr. Flores. And I actually would like to sort of give the microphone to Lupe Catalan from my office, because I am so excited that she is part of our team. And this is really one of her key missions in our office. Since having sort of Lupe on board, and even before she came to work for us, in her work sort of doing promotora type work in Guerneville, it was the first time that we ever actually had Spanish-speaking families participate in a town hall. And like, it actually brings tears to my eyes, because in all this time, right, like we would try to do outreach in Spanish, and, you know, no one would come, because quite frankly, they had never really felt welcome or invited to the table, and didn't have a trusted community partner making that personal invitation, saying, hey, there's going to be food, there's going to be childcare, there'll be a lot of us there, you know, we're going to come and we're going to have a voice. It also means, quite frankly, that we need to deliver on the things that they ask for. And so that's also part of, you know, the charge that Lupe and our whole team is working on, is now that we're actually hearing from Spanish-speaking families who have been underserved for decades in Sonoma County, now how do we make sure that we're getting them the resources that they need in real time, and it doesn't feel like government isn't listening? So I think that I can say that we would love to expand the work to the coast, and would love to work with you. You know, if you have kind of inroads to the community or nonprofits that we should be directly working with. But Lupe, I feel like I've said too much, and I'd love to hand the microphone over to you virtually.
Hi, Linda. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think you said a lot already, but thank you to Dr. Flores. Yes, it did bring a tear to hearing you talk, because I've been working as a community health worker, and I feel that part of the work that I'm doing right now with Supervisor Hopkins as a field representative, it has to do also with being a community health worker, making sure that I'm doing those connections in the community and being able to assist those that are, again, in areas that are hard to reach, like Bodega Bay. Well, I would probably say all West County, Monterrey, Casadero, Jenner. I know we have quite a few Latinx population, and I would love to connect with you. I know the lack of resources that we have in that area. I know the struggles that our people have, and my goal, and I thank Supervisor Hopkins for giving me this opportunity to be part of the team and to be able to connect those that are more vulnerable in our communities and being able to get them connected with resources with the county. So thank you for speaking out tonight. I loved everything that you said, and I do want to be able to connect with you and to be able to bring more Spanish-speaking focus groups into the community to be able to hear directly from the community. And that's one of the things that Supervisor Hopkins is great about doing, listening to the community and making sure that the changes might be slow, but that they will be happening. So thank you for giving me the chance to speak tonight also.
Thank you so much, Lupe, for your work. And I think that the good news is that in addition to our community infrastructure fund, we do have the discretionary fund from the transient occupancy tax that we can give. You know, it's typically an award in the tens of thousands of dollars to, you know, whether is there a need to expand the food pantry services that are offered? Is there a need to get some kind of mobile sort of support out here? For instance, we're going to be funding a new electronic, I think, patient data management, system for the Mendonoma Health Alliance so that they can actually start to have a mobile health clinic up on the North Coast to provide access to underserved rural communities. And so those are the kinds of things that we can do once we have those focus groups and hear from folks what they need. How do we then mobilize the resources to meet those needs? So if can I put you in the hot seat and say, would you be willing to sit down with Lupe and I? And wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Flores. And thank you for speaking. That was a very important thing to say. And it's important to acknowledge that those people aren't in the room right now, right? Who are providing those critical, essential services that we all need. So thank you. Yeah, come on up.
I'm Brian Lubitz. I'm the chair of the MAC, the Coast MAC. I have a few things, but I guess the first thing is to build off of what George mentioned. The Waves Compassion actually has an ESL class that it's actually pretty difficult to always get people to get involved. So if anybody knows folks who that would be useful, please let somebody at Waves Compassion know and we'll connect with them. Some other issues. The state of the infrastructure. So the roads we're very excited about, very, very excited about. But the other thing is we have problems with PG&E. I won't bring my other biases into this discussion, but it's fine, bring them. But PG&E last winter, the storms I understood, like the storms were the storms, but we also had just several random outages, and we actually had one like while I was sitting here, most of the harbor went out. I don't understand why this one happened now, and I guess they're going to fix it. But like, it makes it hard for, I know that some of the businesses here are struggling to, when they hear that there's power out here, it means that, not only are they shut, but it scares people away in the longer term. The other part is not necessarily the roads here, but the roads that bring us people here. So a lot of our businesses are tourist-focused businesses. The roads in Supervisor Rapper's district that come through here, those are flooded a lot. So in the wintertime, that means that, many of the businesses out here, so, Spud Point and, Patty Chinocchio brings this up all the time too. So it makes it really hard for businesses to have consistent business, especially during the slower times in the winter. And then also, of course, as long as we have economic development, the getting people to work in this community with both the housing and then just the general shortage of labor makes it hard to run businesses here. So, I don't have any solutions to those things, but those are sort of some of the bigger issues facing both community, both business and folks out here. And then I also, finally, I really, really appreciate the work that you guys have done on the vacation rental stuff. I'm not necessarily opposed to vacation rentals, but I feel like, so I'm out in Sereno del Mar and we have a lot of vacation rentals by us. totally fine. But there's also fewer and fewer, like basically every new property that's sold ends up being as a vacation rental. Which means that not only we do have a, retiree heavy community, second home heavy community. I understand that. But the fact that there's very few homes which are still like, because the pricing is getting kind of, I mean, if you can rent a house for $350 to $500 a night, that means that asset is worth so much more. And so it means that, our neighbors are moving out and it's becoming, a hotel. So anyway, thank you very much for having this. And I want to thank Debbie and Elise for organizing. Oh, one more thing, because Tiffany's here, I wanted to put a plug in for our school. I know that we are constantly at risk of, that school closing. And I know you guys in your office know that there is like a constant threat, but I think that the educational opportunities, as well as just the infrastructure opportunities, which another one of my pet projects is, and George brought this up to us a couple of years ago about sort of infrastructure for children as well. So I want to plug in for that, because whether it's some indoor attraction, which a gymnasium or something like that, which I'm a big fan of the Monterey CSD. And anyway, so I'm gonna leave it there. Yeah.
And I just actually want to say thank you so much, Brian, for your amazing, thoughtful leadership at the MAC. The MAC is so highly functioning and has been really not afraid to dive into very complex, very controversial topics, but to do it in a way that's really fair and appropriate. And I think you've only missed like one meeting when you were in DC talking to super important people who are way more important than us. So you also are, and you've also been, making sure that you're at all the other town halls and stuff too. So I really appreciate it. I know that you're underpaid, as in paid nothing, to do a lot of work on behalf of the community. It really does make a difference. So thanks for your work. Did I see someone sneaking up who wanted to speak? Did I miss that? Anybody else want to talk? Questions, comments? Also just an opportunity to provide feedback. And remember, we do have, our economic development director here as well. I think it was really great for Ethan to be able to hear directly, especially from the fishing community, and the concerns around infrastructure, Brian, that you brought up, which are just critically impactful to our businesses. Oh, PG&E, you also mentioned PG&E. Okay, I'm going to jump on the PG&E rant train. So one of the reasons that you are experiencing these frequent power outages is because they introduced what is known as fast trip technology. So rather than kind of analyzing the weather and figuring out when they should, shut things down in order to reduce fire risk, which they're still doing, but, not to quite the extent. And rather than doing the aggressive vegetation management, which they stopped doing because it was, I guess, too expensive and they were too slow at it. Now they have technology where if literally a turkey lands on the power line or a squirrel jumps on the power line, it automatically shuts power off to sometimes hundreds of homes, to sometimes 100 miles of power line, which is mind-boggling. And of course, when you look at Sonoma County and where these outages are occurring, where are they happening? Of course, they're happening in West County, where we have more wildlife and more trees and more branches that fall. And for the life of me, I cannot figure out why they can't do some kind of more common sense solution, because every time that fast trip technology goes off, and we've had places in the Lower Russian River where there were like 4 outages within 2 weeks, right? It was just like, again and again and again. They then have to visually inspect every inch of that line before they turn your power back on to show that there is no fire danger. Cameras are super cheap. Why can't they put cameras to see that, hey, like there's, AI that could analyze the footage. Hey, that was just a bird, so I don't need to shut the power off. Or they could actually insulate the power lines. Or instead of doing really expensive undergrounding, they could actually run conduit on top of the ground and wrap it well. And, that actually is also much better than having overhead uninsulated power lines that now will literally be shut down if a turkey jumps on it. So I use the turkey example because that actually came from PG&E representative, because for some reason there was one section that like every day at 5 a.m. the power would go out. And it's because the turkeys would roost there overnight. And then when they jumped off all at once in dawn, it would turn out the power for everybody. So like, that's the world that we live in, guys, 2023, and turkeys are shutting off your power at 5 a.m. So, so anyways, that's my PG&E rant. Sure. Yeah, you wanna come on up. Oh yeah, PG&E.
So next week on Thursday at Monterey Elementary, the River Mac, their main agenda item is PG&E, and there'll be representatives from PG&E there. So there's no reason that people from other areas can't attend.
So give them help. Right. So yeah, and then the other frustrating thing about PG&E is when you look at the amount of undergrounding happening in Sonoma County versus Napa, it's like 10-1 Napa to Sonoma County. So that's also very frustrating. It feels like we are being kind of forgotten in their undergrounding efforts. And of all the places in West County that are going to be getting undergrounded PG&E wire in the near future, guess which one is top of the list? Probably can't guess. Freestone. Because back in the day, like 20 years ago, it was determined that the best place to underground was in historic districts for aesthetic value. And I'm like, and meanwhile, it's 2023 and our biggest priority is not burning to the ground. So don't you think we could focus like in one of the areas where we have, the major large power lines that run to most of Western Sonoma County, where, for instance, in Forestville, a car wrecks at the bottom of Covey Road and it blows transformers like all the way out to the coast, and everybody was without power, 10,000 people for days. Anyways, but no, it's going to be Freestone. So your ratepayer dollars at work, I guess, from PG&E. All right, happier topic. Does anyone have some good news? Because, PG&E was a bit of a downer. Thanks, Brian.
Lots of whales today.
Lots of whales today. I love hearing that.
I know.
Are you serious? Congratulations, 8-day-old grandson. What's the name? Is that Wesley? I like that. Reminds me of The Princess Bride. Yes. That's fantastic. Oh man, you must be a very, very proud grandpa. And especially to have a nod to one of the best books of all times and a pretty good movie too. So got some.
More than proud. Show off after the rebuild of the Grange.
Let's do that. Wonderful. And I think we were just discussing Grange funding as well. Can we make an official announcement or what? I think that was, I believe there was a tourism impact fund application for the Grange as well. Was there? No, is that Jenner? Okay, because I know we've funded it in the past for in here. All right, should we go take a tour? Yeah. All right, let's do it. Yeah. Come on up, because we did get funding, right? I'm just trying.
I'm going to put in that.
Okay, another one. All right.
So,
no, we've talked about it.
yes, the Bodega. I'm the president of Bodega Bay Grange, and these bathrooms are brand new as of last week. They're part of a project to create a commercial kitchen here, and to do that, we had to redo the bathrooms. And Linda's office has contributed $34,000 in TOT funds to make that happen. So thank you very much, and please see our new bathrooms. Yeah.
Fundraising campaign, because I know you've been raising money for a long time.
Right. This project alone, this part of it, and the permits and the architecture cost about $180,000. We need another $150,000 to do the actual kitchen work. So, and also they took down our propane heater, and the county won't let us put it back. So that's what we're going to request as TOT funds. So,
good use of TOT funds
yeah,
for that.
so,
the county made you do it. So
and just reason that the county is interested in this is that we are a Red Cross disaster shelter. We work closely with Bodega Bay CERT. In the event of anything that happens on the coast, we'll be a central player in all that. Thank you very much.
Oh, this looks like we've got one more online question or good news. Yay, good news share. Lupe, do you want to read that?
Yes, so it's not a question from Susan Martin. Speaking of good news, the consolidation of Bodega Bay Fire Department with Sonoma Fire has apparently been a very big success. Thank you to you and the other supervisors who helped us get that through.
That is very exciting. And a couple of months ago, because I couldn't, which was hard for me, it's very difficult to not talk to Steve Hertzberg, if anyone knows Steve Hertzberg, right? And so we couldn't talk while he was actually submitting a bid for the ambulance at the contract at the county, because we want to make sure there was a firewall in between us. And when that firewall finally came down and the contract was awarded, had an opportunity to go out and see the fire station. And it was wonderful because I got to see a bunch of firefighters that I knew from other parts of West County. And I think that you all are going to have such a stronger safety net as as a result of people rotating through the different stations. Because when your mutual aid comes, right, you know, you might have one, and I actually ran into some of the longtime Bodega Bay firefighters out in Forestville. And so, you know, so when they come to provide mutual aid out here, it's their home turf. You know, you're going to have people who know West County like the back of their hands. So when there's a larger scale incident, you're just going to have folks who are really very knowledgeable. So wonderful. All right, let's go for that tour. I'm excited to see some new bathrooms. And I mean, $180,000 bathroom, it's got to be nice, right? That's just the county fees. It's just the county fees.